Welcome back to Switch to Linux. So today we are going to have a little follow-up to an article I did a couple of weeks ago, just a follow-up to the FCC privacy rules. So if you are coming late to the conversation, then what's going on is there were a series of rules that were voted on back in October, I believe, that came into effect in early January, just a few weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, I guess. And then once those came into play, a group of it's an FCC rulemaking process. So now some companies have the ability to question those rules, and then there's another of counter question. So in other words, some of the rules can be changed or can be repealed shortly after they are released. And of course, an incoming administration can turn around certain rules that have come into effect between that election period and the time when the rules come into play. And I think going back a certain number of days before that, I forget exactly when that is. So the rule we are talking about has to do with the ISP privacy rule. So basically it goes like this. We know by now that when you are utilizing various online services through cookies, through tracking, through whatever other means, a lot of information can be gathered about you. And that information is not just what you're doing on the site. It can be that the site puts a cookie on your computer that also tracks the other sites that you go to, enabling you to pass the data back to the site at some future time. It's a way of tracking and collecting a bunch of data. So you can solve that by clearing out cookies or things like that. Now that is what is called the edge providers, meaning that I'm on the internet, I go to a certain website, which is the edge, and then at the edge, now we have more data collection. So there are a series of other items called I believe that's called common service utilities. That doesn't sound right to me. But something to that general effect, and basically utilities fall under this, and various other things fall into it. It basically means like a gateway thing. Things like your basic utilities will qualify under this. So basically, what this means is that there are more rules regarding these, I believe it's called community carrier services, I think is what the term is. There are more rules regarding these community carrier services, meaning that in the case of the ISPs, the ISP cannot just collect your data and sell it for advertising purposes, although the new rules that were put into place allow you to opt in to allow them to collect and sell your data. Why anybody would want to opt in, I have no idea. And that is what is behind the petitions regarding the rules. So a couple of weeks ago, I had sent out I had done a video where I analyzed and talked quite a bit about these privacy rules and why they were fine as it was. And we looked at one of the primary petitions, and there were a whole bunch of petitions that were filed, and they were all filed by lobbyist groups for the ISPs, because the ISPs want to be enabled to collect all of the data that they want about you and to send that data on and sell it without having to worry about the extra rules and the extra overhead and the extra concern of having people opt in and whatever else. Of course, it is a problem when your ISP can see everything you're doing and to sell it. And what we're going to do is we're just going to have a quick look at a few articles here. So first, we're going to have a quick look at the article at Ars Technica. So, sometimes if you follow the article I did a couple weeks ago, sometimes I don't like what Ars Technica did. The one I did on the privacy rules, this is a great article, just grabbing me information. So basically, what's happening is the ISPs are trying to remove these privacy rules and actually even going further and trying to remove the net neutrality. So the ISP privacy is one issue and the net neutrality is another altogether. Oh boy. Frankly, I really like about just about everything that I saw Wheeler doing in the FCC, and I wish he'd stick around and fight for his good cause. But it does look like we are going to fall from a 3-2 Democrat majority to a 2-1 Republican majority. And what that's going to mean for us in the light of everything is all of these decisions that have come down were a 3-2 win, and now they generally could easily be reversed with a 1-2 reversal. I frankly would be in favor of waiting until we have a 5-panel person again, or a 5-person panel again, before we vote on this any further. But anyway, having a quick look at this article here. Again, this was from Ars Technica, published, well, by the time you're probably watching this a couple of days ago. This was from the 17th. I'm recording this late 18th / early 19th, of whatever you call 2 a.m. in the morning. So, basically what happened is here on October 27th, they voted for these rules that took effect January 3rd. And then today, a public issue was noticed. So here is that. Oh, I'm sorry, not that one. This is the public notice. So the public notice basically says that, these rules went into effect. The public notice period is over. So now petitions. Here's all of the people filing the petitions. You can look at what all these are. You can probably just put these guys into a search engine there and find the individual items. And the one that I covered in detail, I want to say was this one here from the United States Telecom Association. I think that's the one I had covered. Might not have been, but I think that was it. Basically, usually what happens when these petitions go through is they vote on the petitions and then they say, no, we're not going to bother it any further. And then these individual lobbyist companies would actually have to sue the FCC in order to look at a rule change. That's not what happened in this case. So what ended up happening here is that the ISPs, or the FCC rather, they said, okay, here is a list of the petitions that are filing for reconsideration of this rulemaking process, and now they are basically opening this up for discussion, which means that they're not taking the repeal of the rules off the table. What they are doing is they are allowing for public comment, and then this is going to allow them to vote on the rules a little bit later on. So, that being said, that kind of summarizes, I think, this article, or this one here, this paragraph. So basically what's going on is we're seeing a systematic reversal of a lot of the FCC rulings, from these privacy rulings to the net neutrality. And basically, the person who is going to be interimly leading the FCC, who is the Pi, I forget his first name there, but he basically is quoting that, in fact, the quote is down here in the article. It says that the net neutrality rules are, quote, the days are numbered, and, quote, during the Trump administration, we will shift from playing defense at the FCC to going on offense. He said the FCC needs to remove outdated and unnecessary regulations and fire up the weed whacker and remove those rules that are holding back investment, innovation, and job creation. There's a couple things about this. Well, the privacy rules that we're talking about, I am in absolute full favor of them. I want these privacy rules to stay in effect. Now, that being said, he is right that those rules can certainly back off some of the investment end of the deal, primarily because an ISP can now sell detailed user data. And that's the problem with it. And that's why the FCC, in their original 3-2 ruling, qualified the ISP as a carrier service, because it means that there's extra rules and regulations. Because the ISP has the ability to see every IP address that you are logged into and every website you are logged into. And if that data is not encrypted, which is still a lot of the net, then they can actually even see the exact data that is going back and forth. Now, we went through the petition in the other video, which I will put a card to or earlier in this video. So you can read what I had to say about that, or listen or watch to what I had to say about that. But overall, going back and repealing net neutrality is the worst thing that could possibly happen for investment, innovation, or job creation. Because what the net neutrality, reversing the net neutrality means is that a company like Comcast or Time Warner can weed out, like they could throttle out the network traffic going to a competing service, including a startup service. So if I want to come up with the latest streaming service, but for example, if I remember correctly, I want to say Comcast might have a stake in Hulu. That might not be completely correct, but let's assume for the sake of example that that is the case. Then what could happen is they see these streaming services come up. You know, you have YouTube, you have your Hulu, you have your Netflix, you have your Amazon Prime. Well, if they look at this and go, well, Amazon Prime and Netflix doesn't help our bottom line, so we're going to throttle them back. But Hulu, we're going to have it full speed ahead. That's the problem with the net neutrality, is it makes that type of discrimination based on the company illegal. Well, they're trying to repeal that so that the ISP can indeed throttle a competing service, which means that if a new innovative company comes up, they will automatically be throttled out, and that is the major problem. So this is not anything. But of course, I was under a misconception. I thought that the FCC was out there for consumer protection. I literally did before reading up a little bit. But then I actually just kind of went over to the FCC website. What we do? Well, here is their 5 key points, and I'm actually terrified. I think I might write to a congressman for an abolishment of the FCC, or at least a radical change. Promoting competition, innovation, and investment in broadband services and facilities. Supporting the nation's economy by ensuring an appropriate competitive framework for unfolding of the communications revolution. Encouraging the highest and best use of spectrum of domestically and internationally. Is that even a complete sentence, or did I read that wrong? Oh well. Revising media regulations so new technologies flourish alongside diversity and localism. And providing leadership and strengthening the defense of the nation's communications infrastructure. There's nothing about this that they are out for the consumers. So I can understand why the repeal of the privacy rules is probably in their favor and will most likely happen. I am completely against that. I think that the ISPs should be considered a community carrier because, like, for example, in my area, I have a monopoly on the ISPs. I cannot change ISPs if I want to have functional internet. And that's the major problem. And we're seeing that in most places, many places. There is not enough competition. That they say that, you know, people change ISPs all the time. And I proposed this question in my previous video, and I will propose it again here, well, because nobody answered it. Do you walk around and just randomly connect to any Wi-Fi connection you find available? I mean, that's not even safe, people. Okay? I mean, do we have to have a phrase like Wi-Fi prostitution or something? I mean, this is crazy. Because anybody that is on some open network can snoop on what's going on, particularly if you're not connecting to a VPN, and really, most people are not. So we have to consider that the FCC is not really ultimately for the consumer, but it is for innovation. So even if they appealed the privacy rulings, which I really hope they don't do, I want those privacy rulings in place. It's a good ruling. It's a good law. Removing net neutrality does definitely contradict every one of these points that the FCC stands for, because it will damage competition, because the ISPs, and they are limited, they do have financial stakes in certain other websites. So Comcast, for example, has their own Comcast streaming service. What if they down-regulate every other streaming service just so they can sell their Comcast streaming service? You know? That's the type of thing that can happen if net neutrality goes away. So we need to be open and vocal about this information, basically so that we want to raise a couple questions or a couple points. Number one is that our privacy should be something that is held dear, okay? And it's, yeah, I know, welcome to 2017, there is no privacy on the internet anymore, but that doesn't mean that we have to wholesale give everything that we have to everybody. And an ISP has the ability to do that. Okay, I can choose, for example, this KDE computer back behind me here, this completely blocks all Facebook traffic, period. There's no tracking cookies, there's no Facebook pixels, there's nothing. This thing, I have it blocked at the host computer level. And I'd encourage you that unless you're utilizing Facebook on any given computer, that's what you want to do. Now, the work computer behind me and this computer, because these are both work computers, they have access to Facebook because I'm a web developer and I actually do have to interface and do some work with Facebook for clients from time to time. So, all that being said, this computer here blocks a lot of that tracking. So, in other words, I can get onto this computer and not worry about is Facebook collecting my data because I'm not using Facebook on it. I'm not allowing Facebook to connect to it in any way. And I have the ability to do that on any edge service provider. If I do not want Google to know what I'm searching for, it's very simple. I do not use Google. I'll use Start Page. I'll use DuckDuckGo. I'll use IXQuick. I'll use anything else that's not Google. And I have the ability to do that. In fact, even though I do a lot and have a very fast-growing YouTube channel right now, I actually do not stay logged into Google on the regular web browsers that I use. I use alternative web browsers for anything that I do on YouTube, and I'd encourage you to potentially do the same. Now, I am noticing, if you notice, and this actually happened, I'm now running an ad blocker on this web browser, and I actually started to do that when I did the Tinfoil Hat Time series, and I wanted to show you an article, and wouldn't you know it, there's a video ad on the stupid thing. So in order to block that kind of stuff, I'm doing that. However, I will be whitelisting any site that I go to a lot on this computer that does not have over-aggressive ads, like YouTube. I will be whitelisting any of those sites because I do legitimately want to give some ad source revenue to sites who are playing nice, who are not bombarding me with stupid pop-ups. And, you know, I just think that that's a great way to go. In fact, I had commented on that, and one of my commenters left that comment on a video that, you know, whitelisting a lot of things. And I think that's a great idea because it blocks out the misbehavior, but it allows you to whitelist the places because in reality, you know, the people in my position, the content creators, you know, some money is made by selling these ads, and it is something that we want to keep in mind. So all that being said, I just want to do a follow-up video, and you know, if you happen to have any ploy in anybody who can challenge these petitions, I might look into it myself. But you know, challenging these positions and making sure that these privacy rules stay in place is a very good thing to do. Unfortunately, in the current political climate, I'm not sure that's going to happen. However, I really think it's something that should happen. You know, we need to make sure that we're monitoring our privacy when we can, and if these rules are allowed to be overturned, then it is absolutely true that our internet privacy is going to be much harder to maintain. So there's VPN notices. You know what? Actually, there's something else I did want to do before I wrap up here. The next thing I want to do, I want to have a look at a few of the comments down here. And some of these I read and some of these I did not. So we come down here. Yeah, lifetime VPN subscriptions are starting to look mighty good, fine deal these days. Of course, I'm sure the FCC won't have a problem when ISPs ban those as well. Yeah. All of those petitions, by the way, are lobbyist groups for ISPs. VPN will be going the way, VPN will be the way I'm connecting until further notice. Thanks, Trump. Is what that guy says. Regardless if you voted for the guy or not. You know, we can't really blame or not blame Trump for any of this. Because frankly, I didn't hear a whole lot of what he's had to say. In fact, neither candidate. I did not hear from any candidate anything on privacy, on internet technology, on cybersecurity, nothing. It was just like, that is the one core issue of the current political environment, and every candidate was completely silent on it. And frankly, I'm not sure any of them really knew anything about it. I mean, one stupid candidate running a email server in their closet. There's great security for you. Lord. Okay. What innovative services? I don't find advertising to me against my will to be an innovative service. Thank you very much. Also, I can choose not to use edge providers or block them with privacy extensions when they are found on other sites. If I block my ISP, I get no internet. My electric service doesn't know whether I am using electricity to heat a pizza or bake a cake and doesn't advertise to me based on my actions. My water service doesn't know whether I'm taking a shower or watering the lawn and doesn't advertise to me based upon my actions. Why does my internet service provider need to know everything about my actions or to sell my data to anyone? Okay, I'm still waiting for this big survey. Where is this big survey that apparently was taken some time ago that came to this final ultimate conclusion that we all want to see relevant ads? You know what a relevant ad is to me? It's something related to the topic I'm looking at. There's a no-brainer. Oh, Lord. Okay. I would just like to hear specifically why the incoming FCC members want to make it easier for ISPs to disregard consumer privacy and why it would be okay for Comcast to charge companies more for faster access to consumers. That's a good question. As a serious question, where is the line drawn that balances consumer protection and corporate profits? Is there a line? When do consumers deserve protection? Do they deserve protection? The creation of the FCC and decades of precedents suggests that we once believed consumers were deserving of protection. Were nearly a century of leaders fools? When every industry is tracking everything we do, sucking up every scrape of data, and selling this information to anyone and everyone who is willing to pay, when the media industry has consolidated into two conglomerates that own all advertising companies, newspapers, television network, cable providers, internet providers, and mobile phone providers, and they simply point to the other company when people complain or complain about lack of competition. When the average family has to pay as much for their internet and phone access as they pay for their car and insurance. When the wealthy have world-class internet connection speeds and pricing while the poor and the middle class pay through the nose for 100 times worse service, will that be enough? Fascinating questions. You know, rather than read a lot of comments, because there's a lot of them here, and go check them out, I'm going to kind of conclude with this, and I've heard this on some privacy discussions and debates. You know, there was at one point in time a study where people were, they had consented to be completely monitored except for the bathroom. And what they found is that anytime someone would come over, people would start going into the bathroom to have conversations, because not the fact that they were going to do something, but in many ways the fear that their guest might say something. And I at times feel the same way. I mean, I've had people send me text messages that go, ooh, make me go, I wish you didn't send me that, because I don't really want to, you know, like that almost sounded bad. And, you know, and I'm very careful, and you should be very careful too, that any text messaging and any email going back and forth can be monitored. Not necessarily that they are, but they can be. And without all of that being said, we need to make sure that we know that our privacy is important. It's one of those last things that we can do. Obviously, we have to give some privacy up. For example, I had to think really hard before deciding if I wanted to do a YouTube channel or not, because as a privacy guy, I'm not, facial recognition is a thing. But at the same time, I'm not. I made that decision for myself, and I simply decided that yeah, for my ability to do research and for my ability to data mine and for my ability to talk, and the fact that I'm a gifted teacher, I really thought it was worth it for me to do some things. Of course, I take other protocols and precautions. All that being said, however, our privacy is an important thing, and that is the reason I like Linux, because it does give me a lot more privacy than the other operating systems do, and that is certainly a good reason to use Linux. So let me know your comments. Let me know your thoughts on this privacy thing, and another fun thing in news here. It was only a week ago we hit 100 subscribers. Well, today we hit 200. We passed 200, so I'm probably expecting 300 probably by the end of next week for sure. And I thank everybody for watching. Let me know what you guys like. Let me know what you guys don't like, and we're just going to keep on doing some great videos. So this has been Tom, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.